It's not desert season without a campfire or Chupacabra Offroad. Now, here's your host, Nick Olson.
What's up, everybody? It's Nick Olson, Chupacabra Offroad. Welcome back to another podcast around the campfire. It's been a little while since we've done it, but we're coming back with an exciting podcast talking about all things electric powered as it relates to the off-road culture. I've got a couple great guests with me today. We've got Jake Hawksworth and John Miller. They're from a company called Hypercraft USA. They're very well versed. They live and eat, breathe this space. I've known Jake for a while. He's a phenomenal engineer. You might see some of his twists and some of his flavor on some of our products, but excited to see you taking on bigger and more exciting, cool things, and the world's starting to go electric. So guys, can you introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your company, and why you're so passionate about electric powertrains and electric vehicles as it relates to off-road culture?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Super happy to be a part of this conversation and be doing this podcast with you. And yeah, you and I have done some fun things in the past, and there's fun things coming in the future. So I am Jake Hawksworth. I'm one of the founders and CEO of Hypercraft. And Hypercraft is a company that designs, engineers, manufactures electric vehicle drive systems, mostly for the off-road, racing, motorsport industries. And we also do some marine and motorcycle applications as well. So happy to be a part of this, talking about all things electric. And with me is John Miller. He's our Chief Marketing Officer for Hypercraft. And I'll kind of let him do an intro for himself.
Hey there, I'm John Miller, one of the founders of Hypercraft. Marketing creative is my part of the business. And yeah, it's really exciting to be here and talking about all things electric. Come from the power sports industry. Jake and I actually met working in the power sports world, and had been brainstorming a long time and really dreaming about the future of power sports. And really that's what led us to this electrification idea. And so yeah, it's really fun to be here and look forward to seeing how electrification really inspires and pushes humanity forward, in how we engage with our public lands, how we have fun in racing applications, and all the other things that electric is going to inspire.
So a lot of you listeners might not have heard of Hypercraft USA, and a newer company, not as well known as other electric drive system powertrains. And today we're going to talk about how electric power would work in different elements of the off-road culture, from kids' machines, dirt bikes, two-wheelers, of course, UTVs, daily driver pickup trucks that would tow your toys out to the desert, out to the mountains. But you guys are also involved, Hypercraft USA, in a project of off-road vehicles. So if you guys want to give the crowd a little teaser, we'll kind of come back to that later. But let's talk about what Hypercraft's working on briefly in the off-road racing world.
Yeah, we have a couple of really exciting projects going. One of those is with a company in Arizona called Geyser Brothers. They're a well-known trophy truck builder, and these guys are super excited and always kind of on the cutting edge and looking forward into the future of what's coming. And they approached us about, their desire to do a full electric trophy truck. And we have some really unique technology and a lot of designs that make that much more feasible than it has been in the past. And so we're kind of pushing into the future with some really advanced technology, building an unlimited class, all electric trophy truck that will race in the unlimited class against the gas engine trucks. And it will be one of the most powerful, high-performance trophy trucks ever built, 1,600 horsepower, over 7,000 foot-pounds of torque. And, we're here to compete. So we also have a cool thing going with Ultra 4 and King of the Hammers. And we are designing and manufacturing a EV spec class for UTV racing. And it will be at King of the Hammers next week, February 2022, unveiling this new spec class system, and excited to be part of that as well.
Wow. So if it's a trophy truck, it's going to be at least 6,500 pounds. So we're going to rattle off a lot of numbers tonight, but as the vehicles get bigger, as we start talking about, I'm sure the hardest part is propelling something that big and that heavy, let alone that fast, let alone race UTV. So that's exciting. Jake, you wanted to talk about, had a great idea of talking about, electric power and why now, right? It's January 2022. There's obviously a lot of buzz, but why is electric so exciting to you guys in your opinion? Why do you think where we're at in terms of market acceptance, whether it's consumer vehicles, maybe off-road toys, why is the electric dominating every headline right now?
I mean, part of it is the technology, I think, right? So, we've hit this point where a lot of really big companies have invested heavily in advancing electric technology. The motors, the batteries, the high power electronics, everything is advancing really, really fast, And so now we're seeing it applied, some really high end brands, automotive brands getting into it. Like, for example, VW set the world's Pike Peak hill climb record with an all-electric vehicle. Like, that's not a small statement, right? I mean, that means the fastest car in the world going up Pikes Peak is electric. And that's not in an electric class. That's like overall. So, seeing things like that gets us excited. A lot of companies going public. A lot of investors are getting interested in electric technology, seeing the trend. So it's in the news more. It's what we're talking about. We're seeing it in performance applications. It's just a really exciting time.
So let's start talking about some of the different vehicles. So tonight we're going to start off with what, in my opinion, be maybe the lighter weight and most practical application, which would be small little off-road vehicles for kids. We'll move up into two-wheeler market, electric dirt bikes, two areas I'm really passionate about, and then move up, of course, to pickup trucks. So, we all need a pickup truck to live this lifestyle, get our toys around. And then we'll get into electric UTVs, even though what Jake came about. I'm really excited to learn more about that. And then finally, we'll kind of finish off with what's happening in the real world today in off-road race vehicles and what will be coming in the near future. I mean, it's fun to talk about, what is in the future, but we're gonna have a good mix of examples of stuff that's here today that you can buy on the showroom floor. It's better iterations of what might have been out there, and yeah, I think that is kind of what we need to get from these early adopter, this smaller market adaptation percentage to really growing and making something that electric power could become a much bigger market share in all of these elements. So, starting off with smaller off-road vehicles, everyone might have had a Power Wheel growing up. Maybe the most practical application. You're moving around a little 20-25 pound kid. I think that's accepted, that electric power is that. Moving up a little bit, kid gets older and a little bit bigger. You start talking about a couple other items. One item that's been on the market for a little while is a little motorcycle by KTM. Now, KTM's obviously, if not one of the best or most well-known company for off-road motorcycles in the world, based out of Austria. They're known for making a lot of amazing bikes for different types of people, with more variety, I'd say, than the big competitors coming from Japan, such as Honda, Yamaha. And they introduced a small electric motorcycle called the KTM SXE. Now, I wanted to chat about this briefly, guys, because I bought one for my son. My son got one about a year ago when he was 5, and now he's 6. And we have some real world experience. So this is kind of a similar point to a 50cc motorcycle. And a couple little quick statistics. Now, the bike is pretty comparable price-wise. It's about $5,300, so it's a couple $100 more than its two-stroke, gas-powered counterpart. And you can purchase things like an extra battery, which is about $800. It has a 907 watt-hour battery, which is like in more context as how you think about watt-hour battery size and 5 kilowatt peak power. But real-world experience, my kid, it's got 6 power modes, and it's a very fast little machine. One thing I really liked about it is that you can adjust the power. So when you're trying to teach your little one how to ride, especially on a two-wheel, too much power is a problem, in my opinion. You don't need a lot of power to have fast and go fun, and you want them to have safe experiences. I really like that. Also, this bike is adjustable up and down, so as they grow was a nice feature benefit, and that's what caused me to pull the trigger. So starting off at the smallest application, what might seem the most obvious, guys, what do you think about this machine, electric power plants, for this market of little ones' first experiences in the dirt?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is it's kind of a signal of what we're starting to like about electric, right? Like, you're talking about the adjustable power modes, the programmability. We call it digital power. It's software controlled, and what we know we can do with software is we can write programs, or we can have power modes, or we can have all these advanced features that we don't get with internal combustion the same way. So, I think that's where a lot of the interest is going. The other thing too, which I don't think you mentioned, but is another huge benefit that shows up in these applications like kids dirt bikes, is the convenience of maintenance, right? Like they're very simple. They're very simple machines, and they don't take a lot to maintain. You charge the batteries, you go out, you send them out, they run again. They're out of battery, they come back, you charge it up or you swap it, and off you go again. So you're kind of starting to see the small things in these types of applications where it's not the performance demand and we're not pushing the extremes of the vehicle, but we like certain things and we're starting to integrate those features and those benefits into our life. And you can see those in some of the bigger vehicles too, as we talk about it.
You know, one thing I want to mention, we've been using the motorcycle just for anyone's out there, it was exceptional, I think, in its use case. Like you said, the maintenance, the lack thereof is for real. It's awesome. I've only done a rear tire, none of these other, air filters, oil changes, clutch problems. But one thing I will say, unfortunately, as my son has gotten a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier, he's really starting to wear the battery quickly. And we're at the motocross track, we're charging. We're kind of starting to get to a point where either we need a second battery or maybe he's grown out of it. But I think for where he was at learning how to ride, like you said, the digital, the programmable power was what I thought, maybe the best thing that he could have at that time for him to have great, safe experiences and grow his abilities as he continues to move up. And I imagine, they're working on maybe the next bigger version coming up soon. I kind of joked about a Power Wheels because, Tesla recently made a lot of headlines by launching a kids ATV. And I looked at some of the numbers and I kind of chuckled. This is a $1,900 vehicle. So I wouldn't consider it the same or comparable maybe to a gasoline engine kids ATV. It has up to a 15-mile range and a top speed of 10 miles per hour, which kind of sounds pretty Power Wheels to me, guys. I don't know about you. And it says it's 8 years and up. And just for a little more perspective, I think it had no front shocks. It has a rear, but guys, it's got a 36-volt lithium-ion battery. So, what do you think about this machine? Is it just a Power Wheel? Is it a marketing ploy? Is it something viable? Is it a precursor of things to come? But also it's Tesla's entrance into the off-road market. So what do you think about that?
John, I might let you take this one.
Well, coming from the power sports industry, and whenever you see, so like, I don't know, I'm gonna throw Kimco under the bus here. When Kimco came out, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, they're entry level. They're kind of, I don't know, it's just not hitting all the right notes here, guys. And I don't know, for a company like Tesla to be so premier in everything they make, and then to put something like that out, it almost like undermines their brand positioning, in my opinion. Is it a joke? Is it something that are they earnestly trying to penetrate this market, or is it just sort of a prop for a photo shoot? When they launched the Cybertruck, I noticed some PR shots that had, is this the same vehicle in the back of the truck that's charging off the back of the?
Wasn't it an adult size ATV? I think with the Cybertruck release, right? It wasn't a youth one. It was a full size quad.
So I don't know. I guess my impression is like, are we talking about a prop that they put in the back of a truck to conceptually convey, maybe someday in a Mad Max future, we're going to have electric, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like an earnest attempt at the market from an outsider's perspective.
I totally agree. And I think, we're going to get into the UTV and the motorsport and the racing stuff that we're involved in. And we're watching the OEMs try to get involved with the advancement of electrification. But I think that there's a lot missing, where we can be as a company at the ground level with the people in the industry and be very dynamic and apply the technology and do really purpose-built systems. I think you're seeing the OEM's limitations. And so that's my perspective. I think Tesla is, probably hitting a mark for some of their current demographic, but they're tapping into power sports, and I don't think it appeals to power sports fans like us.
Yeah, I think there's a certain core, that you have to understand culturally to really hit the nail. Like you're either in the culture and you really understand it, you know how to like hit all the specifications and the desires and dreams of that culture, or it's just a bunch of marketing suits in an ivory tower doing market research and maybe they're finding an insight that they want to tap into, but they're missing so much context because they're not actually out there living the lifestyle themselves.
I'm glad you said that, John. Bringing up the Cybertruck release too, where there was an ATV, and I get excited. I'm sure all of us like, oh, cool. And it's also cool that regardless of if they're in it, like you said, they're using off-road, and they almost kind of have to market the toughness of the pickup truck. Obviously. So, like you said, is that what it was about? I mean, there's a couple of videos of surface of the Rivian we can talk to in a minute when we get into that segment of it doing some legit off-roading out in Moab. So it's cool that at least, with a pickup truck, with these companies, that they're using it in the off-road segment to show, look, this is what we designed it for these people, and we are those people, right, that live that lifestyle. So can it handle these rigors along with day-to-day life, right? But they're using the marketing and the off-road culture, I think, to help prove, make a statement, make a point. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
I mean, it shows where the consumer perception is at, right? There's still a lot of concerns, there's still a lot of questions, there's still range anxiety, there's all of that. So they're trying to figure out a way to change consumer perception and inspire people to think about electric differently. But I don't think it's quite authentic yet. And I don't think that because, it's not in the hands of the people in the power sports industry that really do the most innovative work. And, and that's what we want to see at Hypercraft. That's what we want to see. We want to see people have access to this technology in a whole new way and really define what electric can be for the power sports industry or the motorsport or the racing industry.
Yeah, and I don't mean to like throw corporations under the bus on this, because there's a lot of case studies where when they do hit that note, they do hit those specs, they do hit that use case, then you see rapid explosion of innovation. The manufacturer I worked for, we launched some pretty amazing products that we saw the side-by-side marketplace explode from a vehicle that came from a utility vehicle. Hey, what if we tweak this and we, give it more suspension, bigger tires, a little more power? Oh, let's put a turbo on it. What happens? And then the consumer gets a hold of it, and then they start tweaking and tuning and beefing things up, and and then they start racing it and breaking it and engineering it, and then the manufacturer sees what they're doing in the aftermarket, and they up the ante, and then the aftermarket ups the ante, and then that's when you start to see these like incredible explosions of innovation. And that's the world that Jake and I came from. And ironically, he was on the aftermarket side, I was on the OEM side, and we were kind of like doing this in our own way before we had ever really met. And then once we started kind of recognizing those patterns, and we've seen it in every segment of motorsports and power sports and action sports, even, how the aftermarket and culture and the corporations can kind of iterate off of each other that way. And we're looking over here at electric, and we experienced it in a Tesla, and that was awesome. We're like, okay, how do we experience this on an ATV or a snowmobile or a motorcycle? And we're looking around, it's like, well, why aren't we seeing this? And it's like Jake was saying earlier, there was a lot of like kind of that government mandates, regulations that were forcing it, and it was pushing the OEMs early on to start developing that technology, but the marketing just wasn't inspiring anybody. It was inspiring some people to go green or whatever, and I mean, look, we care about the environment, very much so, but we're not going to inspire the mass market to start to get excited about this stuff until we start to put it into the context of performance. And that's really how we, as a company, that's what inspired us to even start. But that's going to be what continues to inspire us. That's why we get out of bed in the morning, and really the DNA that Hypercraft is built upon.
It's funny. I'm glad you brought that up. You mentioned, marketing. This has been going on for quite a long time. I think of the explosion of SUV vehicles being marketed to adventurous lifestyle. Whether it was the Nissan Xterra during the Extreme X Games, Gen X culture, you see it happen, and you see some vehicles, it just fits our culture. It reminds me of true authentic off-roading. The Toyota 4Runner has just been a staple always and forever. And then you talk about what with the Hype really builds, it kind of reminds me of the Ford Raptor. I mean, as a longtime off-road enthusiast, it was kind of like, holy cow, Ford actually made, this vehicle for the consumer. Is it going to sell? And I have to imagine that it just surpassed expectations. Now you have this top dog with the best-selling vehicle in the country, the Ford F-150. Everybody, it's far more accessorized. It's cooler. It is, like you said, been accepted by probably a lot more people outside of the off-road community because it's just cool. Off-roading made it cool. It's a great product. People love it, and it kind of reminds me of the Bronco release. And it's cool to see these products that probably really now cross over to a big variety of people that maybe don't off-road, but maybe they might, and that's cool. That someone buys a new Bronco maybe or a Raptor and they weren't into it, but they get into it and they are part of the lifestyle now. And that's kind of what your vehicle can say about you. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Is that just kind of a perfect, you like those examples? Is that just a perfect blend of like marketing with product for off-roading or and beyond?
I think you're right on. And I think what happens to create that dynamic is, and I think the OEMs, I can look to a lot of OEMs where they start to realize, hey, we have to have people who live this, love this. And that's what really influences inside the halls of the corporate manufacturers. You've got to have that boots on the ground, grassroots connection to the culture, and and putting it through its paces, like in the application, is really where the innovations all come to life. So,
and I mean, like take Toyota for example. The TRD program was built in off-road racing with Cal Wells and everything that he did with Toyota, and all the research and the development that they did in off-road. And what it became was something very authentic, right? To the off-road industry. It's in the DNA of the vehicles, and it just resonates. It resonates for a really long time. And I think kind of like to what John was saying about, the aftermarket, or, the kind of the builders, the innovatives, like we're going to King of the Hammers next week. You're going to see 100,000 people that's made up of this off-road community. And a lot of them are builders and fabricators and own vehicles and teams. And these are the guys that are creating the culture, right? We have this great new electric technology, and until we get it in their hands, we have no way of how to apply it authentically, how to improve it authentically, right? But once we go through the work and the effort, and they get their hands on it and they integrate it into vehicles and they test it and they break it and they fix it and all those different things, 5-10 years from now, what we're going to have is this kind of look back at this really authentic change. And that's what we're wanting to see happen, because from our perspective, electric is this really incredible technology. I mean, it's digital, it's programmable, like all these things for internal combustion that we've spent years, like decades, kind of just as workarounds. Like, look at what transmissions are. Transmissions are just a way to keep the power band where a gas engine wants to be, this very narrow power band. Well, electric, the torque curve is flat. I mean, we have almost 100% of our torque from 0 to 1 RPM, and it just pulls hard all the way through the power band. If we can supply enough energy to it, things become easy with electric. Rivian built an electric truck, and they're doing things in Moab that, like, how long did Jeep and all these off-road vehicles take years and years of development and everything to get to that point where they could do these obstacles? Rivian's coming in with a brand new electric truck, and it's easy, right? Because for electric, it's kind of this new performance benchmark, but we don't know how to apply the technology until we go through that kind of authentic iteration, and get it in the hands of the guys that do the most amazing innovative things with it, and break it and fix it and learn from it.
So speaking of breaking, fixing, getting this technology in the consumer's hands, it's a perfect segue to shift gears to dirt bikes. Maybe all of you guys listening, we've all owned a dirt bike at one point in our journey, or still do. And a true dirt biker, he knows his power band, right? You've got 2-stroke guys, you got 4-stroke guys. A lot of people have owned both, right? You got pros and cons. You got to keep that power where it works. If you're on a little bike or a big bike, etc., power is part of the equation. It's a machine that you're very hard on. You're jumping big jumps. It can do amazing things, right? And electric seems to be have a phenomenal potential. And if you guys aren't familiar, there was a company that launched several years ago, I think not even that long ago, 2018, Alta, called the Alta MX. It's now defunct. Unfortunately, the company went under, but some of the stats are that this motorcycle had 50 horsepower, which was pretty comparable to, a little bit more than a standard 250F 4-stroke, a little bit lower than today's modern 450s. And that's 36.5 kilowatts and then 199 Newton meters of torque. And it weighed a little bit more than most dirt bikes, weighed about 265 pounds, which is about 25 pounds more. So you have a weight disadvantage, but you have all these benefits of the powertrain. And I thought the use case that people loved is, hey, I've got private property and my neighbors are complaining and I can't ride a regular dirt bike, but this makes no noise. I can go have fun. I can live the dream of getting home from work and riding right outside my back door. And there's a lot of people across the country that have that option there. And it seemed like that was the best use case. It also raced competitively in a couple exhibition races like the Red Bull Straight Rhythm. I mean, guys did backflips on them. Like, it's a real product. I think it proved to a lot of people electric has potential in motocross. So guys, what do you guys think about the Alta and the application of electric power band or electric power plant in the two-wheel space?
We've talked a lot about Alta over the last few years, and they're one of the biggest inspirations in a lot of ways, in even just how to approach the business and go to market. And but the sad part is they're a great company. They built a great product, and they didn't survive because they spent all their money developing the technology, and it couldn't sustain them into profitability. And unfortunately, they had to sell it for pennies on the dollar to a big manufacturer that just wanted the technology, right? And I don't know. It's one of those kind of sad case studies of timing, product market fit, and all the adventure that entrepreneurs go on when they have a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I always ask myself too, and there's a lot of lessons from Alta to learn, but what would have happened if Alta started 4 or 5 years later, right? Would they still be around? Would they have made it? And that's the dangerous part. And there's a lot of companies that have kind of blazed this trail on electric, from 2008 till now. It's been a really rough path for a lot of companies that have tried to enter into it because it is early adopter and there is a lot of consumer perception. Like Nick, I rode motocross for 10 years, and I thought it was cool, but the gas engines were so part of the experience, like 4-stroke, it was like part of our brand. Like I came into it right after 2-stroke. And so I was like this diehard 4-stroke guy. And even though I thought electric was cool, to some degree, it wasn't enough to get me that interested. And I think it might just be that Alta was a little too early. Now we see another motorcycle brand starting up that's electric, and it'll be interesting to see, what happens. But I think they had a great product, but could have been just like John was saying, is they overspent on development for one vehicle platform and the timing was wrong.
Yep. Well, that, like you said, timing 4 or 5 years later, you mentioned the new brand. Out of seemingly nowhere comes a company called Stark Future, and they launch a motorcycle called the Varg. And, I say out of nowhere because I follow motocross pretty close. I'm a big fan, very passionate, and there was no spy photos. I think they just did a product release amazingly well. Just marketing lesson. They show up, they have working motocross bikes. They've got top riders, developers riding them, doing backflips, riding hard, showing people, look, it's not just an idea. And then also, not only do we develop this amazing power plant, that it seems to be, with the numbers I'll give you guys here in a second, but they also designed everything around it. So as some of the stuff that core motorcycle riders would like typical KYB off-the-shelf suspension you'd buy on your Yamaha, obviously brakes, wheels, etc. But they incorporated and had some ingenuitive designs with designing their own foot peg. I thought was cool. The way the rear the axle lined up with the chain adjuster was clever, and seems like why would none of the other manufacturers just implement these changes? So those type of things made me really excited. I think the bike looks gorgeous. Again, it's called the Stark Varg, and 5 years later, Jake, we go from 50 horsepower on the Alta to a new maximum potential of 80 horsepower. John, we go from 265 pounds down to 242, which is right in the middle of all of your top brands 450 weights. I'm going to need more help, guys. This is out of my pay grade. 938 newton meters of torque, and the battery capacity is 6 kilowatts. So break that down. Based on the numbers, guys, will this last as long as a motorcycle with a typical 2-gallon fuel cell? And then you have all the other benefits of electric that was really going to benefit the motocross application. What do you guys think?
Jake has the technical brain for this sort of a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, technical, stuff aside, right? What we saw is Josh Hill throwing a massive whip on an electric dirt bike, and there's nothing that isn't going to get dirt bike guys, motocross, supercross guys excited about seeing that, right? Like that, I think that's what they nailed more than anything. I don't know. I mean, that's 600 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, if they're in newton meters, we've seen a lot of the specs. It's a 6 kilowatt hour battery, which is really small. And we live and breathe this every single day. I mean, we're launching a UTV spec class racing system for UTVs, and we do engineering calculations all the time on this kind of stuff. And so there's a lot to be seen. I think the technology has improved from when Alta launched. So you see some of the benefits: lower weight, higher power. The torque is after gear reduction, so I'm sure that's at the wheel, not at the motor, which is okay. That's a fair thing to say. But at the end of the day, it's fun factor, right? That's what we all want. Like, we get that same experience, and the electric experience is different, but we can show how it still can be fun. And I think they're doing a great job of that. And it, makes me want to swing the leg over it. And honestly, like, because of the maintenance factor, and like we were talking about the digital power and all that, I would totally look at an electric dirt bike right now.
So Jake's touching on the maintenance factor. I'm going to admit that I'm a total outsider to the dirt bike world. I've been a performance guy all my life, action sports guy. I'm a pretty advanced mountain snowmobiler. I ride street motorcycles. I've probably got 100,000 miles of heavyweight cruiser motorcycle riding under my belt. And I've ridden dirt bikes. But the one thing that turns me off about a dirt bike is I do not want to freaking tear it apart after every third ride and lube this and tighten that and rebuild the top end and deal with all the maintenance that I see all my dirt bike friends going through. Just completely turns me off from ever wanting to buy a dirt bike. When you start talking about electric, though, it's like, I was actually talking to a buddy about snowmobiles the other day, and he's like, I've got something going on. It's not firing. Like, you think it's spark? Or I'm like, I don't know, dude. I just ride them. It's like with a dirt bike, like if the only way that they're ever going to get me into being a dirt bike consumer is when I can say, I don't know, I just ride them. Then I don't deal with all the maintenance and oil and dirt mixed with oil and all of that. So
I think they've got to prove that this bike is reliable. I mean, that the frame's solid, the other things they engineered specifically hold up well. Mm-hmm. I'm excited. I'm optimistic. We'll see. I mean, most dirt bikes, in my opinion, I kind of equate them to being built like an anvil, meaning you're going to brake before the bike brakes, compared to a UTV where you can just mash the throttle and you can bend a suspension component or blow out a wheel. A dirt bike is pretty darn tough for what the inputs that they're getting, in my opinion. One thing that's worth mentioning, guys, too, the price is comparable. It's a little on the high side, but it's comparable to like a factory edition 450, about $11,500 to $13,000 based on your option. So that, it's more price sensitive market than UTVs. And that is a big deal, in my opinion, that they kind of kept it ballpark. I heard that they sold 800 of these bikes in the first day, which is cool. And I think one thing you mentioned, John, different power bands. And as a two-wheel connoisseur, right, we always go back and forth about which power plant do you want. Like 125 guys are still there and they're diehard. And I'm into off-roading stuff for the most part. And the KTM 300 two-stroke is like the holy grail right now. And I'm a four-stroke guy. The 450 was a little bit much for me. The 250 is a little light. I'm 205 pounds. The 350 is my holy grail. But there is a big following, and that's kind of, I think, how KTM really exploded, was having these different types of options, where back in the days it was kind of just two options and pick. But I mean, like you guys said, the adjustable power, like that's probably what makes me most excited about this bike, is that you could tone it down, let your wife ride it. Maybe you're doing trail riding. Power is not your focus. You're riding for 6 hours. It's going to wear you out. But then you're riding motocross. You've got something that can make maybe everybody happy for a lot of applications. Not to mention, a lot of motocross tracks have closed because of noise. So I think it's exciting for the culture, exciting as an enthusiast. I mean, you guys agree? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's super exciting. I mean, I think every, sport has a little different culture. I mean, when I rode dirt bike, maintenance was part of the routine. It kept you in touch with the bike, and it kept you feeling really great about riding it hard. I mean, I know the times that I've ridden really, really hard, it's like you want to maintain it. But I do think that there's some other great things that this brings about, and the power modes are awesome. The other thing too, when you have with electric 100% of your power available out of the gate, it's very linear. Like, these bikes, which I don't know if a lot of people understand, like this, this dark bike is very detuned. You just can't handle 100% of the power at the, your first small twist of the throttle. So I think as riders learn electric power and they advance and your riding advances, it's not just the power modes or the amount of power available to you. It's the timing of it all. It's those acceleration profiles. And we have things like regenerative braking, so the motor can do some of the braking, and how those are tuned will become very personal. They'll be like personal profiles. We're gonna probably have a lot of apps where we can tune all of that to us, and we can save it as a profile. We can share the profiles with our friends. So, Nick, you're out riding and you're like, hey, I've tuned this whole new profile for, acceleration or whatever. And you can send it to me and I can put it into my bike and I can ride what you're riding, and that's going to change, a lot for us in the way we think about and talk about, performance and experience the sport and the technology. So I'm excited about that part.
Reminds me of a high-end wakeboard boat, with 12 adjustable wave modes for the guy who can barely stand up like me to the pro, right? Like, that's a huge part of the experience in that sport. And
Totally.
That's kind of how we're evolving to, in a sense. That this reminded me of. So shifting gears, guys, you got off-road toys. We need a way to get them out to the motocross track, out to the desert, wherever you like to ride. In my opinion, the two biggest right now that I'm most excited was the new Ford F-150 Lightning and the Rivian. So quick spec numbers. Ford Lightning is spec'd saying 562 horse, 775 foot-pounds of torque, boasting over a 300-mile range and a 10,000-pound towing capacity. So very similar towing capacity to my 3.5-liter EcoBoost F-150 I own. The Rivian's boasting even more horsepower and 11,000-pound towing capacity. So what are you guys' thoughts about either one of these vehicles working for the dirt passionate lifestyle guy, whether he's dirt biking or, most importantly, if he's towing a UTV or even towing a toy hauler? Can he go 150, 200 miles at a time before charging to go out to the desert, to go to the mountains?
No, we're not there yet. That's just flat out. You hook a trailer to an electric truck and your range cuts in half right out of the gate. And, I mean, it's just, I think we're 3 to 5 years away still, but I think if you're willing to adjust your lifestyle, I think if you're willing to, like, you're heading out to Glamis, I think if you charge, before you get there, if you can charge at 100 miles or 125 miles, you're going to experience some really awesome benefits. But you have to be willing to change a little bit, change your lifestyle, change your routine. If you're going to say, hey, I have this gas truck and this is how I do it, and this is when I do it, and this is, why I do it this way, and I want an electric truck to do exactly that. No, we're not there yet. But if you can adjust, if you can be flexible and learn that it's totally new and different, you're going to experience some crazy, awesome benefits. Like, the Lightning has its awesome inverter on board. I mean, you can power some serious stuff with that truck. So you show up to Glamis or wherever you're going, out into, the wilderness. You have mobile power like we've never had before. And that part of it is really exciting. So if you do have an electric, dirt bike or whatever, you can use your truck to charge your dirt bike, at night, or all those really cool things. So that part of it's going to be exciting, but overall you probably need to get to 600 or 800 miles of range before we can tow and actually have usable range and have some power left.
Yeah. And I wonder, where the aftermarket will go with this stuff too. Like, will your toy hauler be covered with solar panels on top, and will you be hauling extra battery, or can you daisy chain 6 trucks into a campsite, and what does that mean? What can you do with that? And so I think we still don't know what Ingenuity from the grassroots side of the culture is going to do with that technology, and how they'll amplify it and apply it in ways that we had never thought of.
So, a toy hauler, you said, you're not there. I'm not surprised that you would say that. Let's talk about kind of an average size toy hauler that you tow with an F-150. Let's call it 6,000 pounds dry, or maybe loaded down with the UTV. You're talking close to what it's rated for, right? 10,000 pounds. What about if you had a Lightning or a Rivian, and you put some dirt bikes or some ATVs in the back, or maybe you just let's call it a couple bikes in the back and maybe a lightweight trailer with an ATV. For someone who has that type of lifestyle, maybe they only commute, let's call it even 50, 100, 150 miles a day. Guys, do you think that that's a very viable option?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we are seeing trucks, electric trucks that are coming to market in the 300 to 500 mile range, and that's some really good range, and the with the DC fast charging options and more infrastructure going in, you can stop and have a burger, grab something to eat, and get a lot of usable range back in 30 to 45 minutes. It's there. We're so close. So, I think that just changing that example, Nick, kind of shows you how close we are, right? And we might feel a little bit limited, but what we're seeing is the benefits of electric outweigh the downside, and that tipping point for the power sports enthusiasts and the people that do travel more, it might take a few more years, but it's coming.
So we haven't mentioned a couple other trucks. There's been prototypes released of the Tesla Cybertruck. Chevrolet made an announcement. So I'm curious, each of you guys, which of the manufacturers, maybe someone we haven't mentioned, is going to be the most adapted? Who's going to win? Who's going to get the whole shot electric consumer pickup truck? Who do you guys think are going to win based on the information we've got right now?
I feel like it's Rivian. I just feel like they've been out there testing the most. I think they have a great cultural energy behind them that supports them. I'm actually a huge fan of the Cybertruck because it's just so bizarre. But I think I would love to have one personally, just as a icebreaker. But I feel like Ford is going to do well with this as well. But I kind of feel like I see Rivian as the leader in this space.
Yeah, for me, I have a slightly different view of it. I think Ford is going to come out as kind of being the leader in this area. I don't know or have any insider information, so hopefully nobody hears this and says, "Oh, Jake's talking about something he knows." But I think we're going to see Ford more involved in off-road racing and testing new technology there. I think that's going to help them. I think Rivian is too much of an outsider, and they are very innovative and they have an incredible product. And like John said, they have a culture that, connects really well with more of like the camping, human powered climbing, mountain biker crowd, which I'm, part of that is for me. But, for the high performance off-road racing, I mean, all it's going to take is, the Ford Lightning Raptor to come out, and, the Ford is going to pull ahead really, really quickly. So I just don't think, Jim Farley they're doubling the production of F-150s. They're putting massive infrastructure in. Guys like Von Gittin Jr. are doing crazy things with, electric Mach-E's, and, Ford's just on the move, man. They have committed to this, and I think they're going to pull ahead. And Tesla, I don't know. My opinion is they're too weird, and they're going to get some guys buying trucks.
Trolling us with that truck? Is it actually going to look like that? Or, I mean,
it's going to look like that. I mean, one of my friends graduated, from Pasadena Art Center with the guy that designed the Tesla truck. And, they had a specific set of goals that they based that truck design on for durability, manufacturing, cost. And it's got impressive specs. So, they're going to do well. There's no truck that has the power and the range that the Tesla Cybertruck has right now. So, they're going to do well, but long term, Ford, I think Ford is going to come out ahead.
I definitely agree with the long term with Ford. And when you say Ford Raptor, electric Ford Raptor, I mean, that changes the whole conversation.
Well, and they just released the Bronco Raptor, right? And an electric Bronco and an electric Bronco Raptor. I mean, come on, like, it's got me excited, and I'm just thinking about it. And so, Ford's shown some strong push in this direction already, and I believe that they have the right leadership. And I got to speak on a panel, a few months ago with Jim Farley about the future of motorsport. And these are smart guys. Like, I think they know what they're doing, but they're not as fast, they're not as nimble, they're not as adaptive, and they're not going to build purpose-built EV drive systems for motorsport and racing right now. So there's a lot that's going to happen before they come out. But as far as the truck owning the vehicle and the consumer truck market, I think Ford's going to be there.
I would agree with that. I think it's Ford F-150 has been the most popular selling vehicle of any type, car, truck in general, in the United States for how many years? Over 2 decades.
Yeah,
I've owned 5 of them.
I've owned a couple myself. I'm a fan. I'm a Ford guy.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I just dig them. I like the front trunk. I think, like you said, the infrastructure is probably what I would be timid as a buyer. The Tesla is just so wild looking, even though they do have a head start with branding, with coolness, with infrastructure. I feel like Ford is going to come out. So I'm glad, Jake, you mentioned racing. It's a perfect way to kind of segue into the big boys, into racing, into brands proving that they can make electric powertrains. So I'm going to give you guys this first vehicle, which maybe we're cheating because it's not kind of electric, if you guys want to explain it or talk about it more. But I'm talking about Audi's RS-Q e-tron. Now, this is the new vehicle that they raced Dakar, the big Dakar rally, arguably the hardest off-road race in the world, stage races, 13 days of racing. They won several stages, but to be real, to be fair, it's an electric powertrain, right, guys? But there is a gasoline engine that recharges the powertrain itself, right? So they did hire 2 of the best drivers in the game, Carlos Sainz and Monsieur Dakar, I think he's known, Stefan Peter Hansel. So amazing team, amazing money. What do you think about Audi? And can you explain the vehicle? Is it really part of this conversation is electric, or is it a hybrid? What do you guys think?
No, I mean, it's definitely not electric. We've had ways, for the last 150 years to have, big commercial vehicles where the actual power deliveries from electric motors, but we have onboard diesel, providing the energy. It's an APU, right? It's a hybrid. So no matter how you cut it, it's hybrid. Hybrid's not new. We've had hybrid for a long time. Look at the hypercar market, Koenigsegg and, Ferrari and Lamborghini, all these guys, Porsche, they've done amazing things with hybrid. I'm not trying to hammer on Audi, but to say that they're proving the viability of all electric is not true, right? They're using a range extender, and I think it's impressive. A huge fan of the vehicle. I'm a huge fan of Audi as a car company, and excited from an innovation side what they're doing. But I think that it's kind of back to so I'm a little bit biased. I mean, we're working with Geyser to produce an all-electric trophy truck, which is a true all-electric vehicle. And we have some crazy, awesome energy storage technology that's going to make it more viable. And we could talk for a whole hour about how this system works. And we're really excited to be the company bringing it to racing. So we believe it's viable, but they're working within their means or whatever the decision was. I think they had to make some big calls on how they move forward as a company. But I think it's a little bit, it's a little bit misleading. They call it e-tron, and their consumer product electric market or car, line is e-tron. But it's definitely interesting.
Now, Audi isn't the first name I think about in off-roading, just as a average American, maybe more so in Europe. What do you guys think that was the reason to test this powertrain to put it into car versus on road, for a brand like Audi? Like what was the synthesis behind it? Like you said, it sounds like an electric car when it takes off, obviously, and like you said, it is technically a hybrid. But why do you think they wanted to prove as a marketing effort in the most grueling off-road race in the world this vehicle?
I think that it would be interesting to hear John's feedback on this, but I think it gets back to consumer perception, right? I mean, the 24 Hours of Le Mans was started because they wanted to show that an automobile was more durable than a horse. And they said, we can make a car go for 24 hours without stopping. And you can't do that with a horse. Like there's that kind of new challenge with electric. We're like, hey, if we're concerned about durability, we're concerned about safety, we're concerned about range anxiety, what are we going to do? We're going to find the most extreme, harsh environment in the world and the longest race that we can. And if we can make electric work there, then what message does that send to the world? And that's how we look at it too. So I think it's a marketing thing. I think it's about, the future of what they're doing with their product line. And I think it's smart. I mean, these guys are brilliant guys. They know what they're doing, and they're putting a huge amount of effort into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's well said. It's the same reason why we're doing an unlimited class trophy truck against the best of the best in gasoline and the most grueling race in the world, except we're actually doing it as a fully electric vehicle. And, it might blow up, it might fail. We're going to break it. Hopefully not, but, we're going to break it. We're going to figure out where those pain points are. We're going to fix them, and we're going to come back again. And when we get it right, all of that knowledge that we gained from that grueling race is what's going to, from a marketing position, it's going to position us with the consumer culture, but it's also going to create tons of knowledge for engineers and development, and it's going to pave the way, spearhead, for another generation that's going to take that benchmark that we helped create. And we can't even imagine where we're going to be in 10 or 20 years with all of this. So it's exciting to be at the forefront of something like that, and thinking about how performance culture can survive into the next generation and beyond. I think that's what everybody's striving for. And when you think about like even the digital power and the tuning, and you look at culture, and my 15-year-old son just walked in and caught me having a phone call, but he's got his iPad in his hand, and he has no interest in the performance stuff that I'm into, but he's all digital, and I mean, we even saw this at SEMA, where the older generation and the younger generation, they don't quite speak the same language, but the digital generation is going to take over, and this is the way that we start moving ahead. So the younger people are going to really start to take over, and that digital tunability and that social sharing and all the technical side of that is where the future of all this racing is going to go.
So you guys aren't going to be the first to try to get into off-road racing with an electric powertrain. There's been a couple brands that have tried. One that kind of comes to mind recently is Lordstown Motors. They tried to finish and complete the San Felipe 250 less than 1 year ago. There's been a few others. I remember a Class 1 car by a small company in North County, San Diego, I think SRD, several years ago. I remember some other stuff too. So, let's chat about your project. I mean, explain how you guys are going to propel a probably 7,000-pound vehicle. I mean, ideally through Baja, right? Probably the ultimate proving grounds in the trophy truck space, at a time and place right now at the end of 2021 where I think four-wheel drive has now become normal in terms of what it takes to win. And for years, it was like, they're not going to be reliable. And I think this year, penalties aside, it would have won the Baja 500. And I think it earned the top 3, maybe would have earned the top 4 positions at the Baja 1000. And that hasn't happened. So the 2 of the most important grueling races were just a 4-wheel drive. What do you guys think about electric? Let's hear about some specs of the vehicle and how we get that big girl pushing for that long with battery power.
Yeah. So, I think our approach to this that might be different from other companies that have tried this is one, go find the expert in the industry, somebody who knows it inside and out. And Geyser has been building and racing trophy trucks for 20 years. They have more, podiums than any other truck builder. And, that strong partnership, I think is a great, early foundation for success. And the next thing that we're going to do is, we're going to base it on a chassis that's race proven, right? We're not going to redesign everything about the truck and, and risk, potentially dealing with a lot of problems that are unassociated with the electric drive system itself. If we start with a proven platform, we know where we're starting from, right? And the third thing that we're going to do is we're going to design an electric vehicle drive system that's purpose built. And I think that's another thing that you haven't seen, from companies like Lordstown, where their objective was not to build a race winning vehicle. It was to kind of do a demonstration of their fleet truck, in an off-road environment, which didn't do well. There's also a couple things that we've learned, and that we're not going to know everything. Like John said, we might fail, we might learn a lot of things, but this truck is going to be one of the most tested trophy trucks before it races of any trophy truck that's been built. It'll do a full 1000 in Baja in race terrain before we go race it. We're going to find, and understand the weak points of the truck and the drive system and the technology so that we can do a lot of the improvement. And then when we're ready to go race, we're going to go race. So, we've learned that, there's no way to charge this truck during pit stops. So this is going to have one of the most advanced battery swapping systems that allows us to do it, under 90 seconds, change the whole vehicle battery system in under 90 seconds. The battery system is hybridized. There's 2 different types of storage on the vehicle that manage different needs for the truck. One is to maintain momentum and extend range, and one is for the performance acceleration and energy recovery on the truck. And with that, we're able to extend the range 67% and reduce the battery on board and the weight by 30%. And so this is proven technology that we have done, all the early engineering on, and shown its viability. And what's left is for us to, to finish building the truck and go out and test it and show what it can do. So, it's a really exciting program. Obviously, with the sheer performance, 1600 horsepower and over 7,000 foot-pounds of torque, it is going to be a very fast accelerating truck. But it also has some of the most advanced, power distribution, power management systems of any vehicle. The driver has power bias control between front and rear. It has torque vectoring, which means we spin the outside tires faster than the inside tires while it's cornering, and different things like that. So it's not only fast, it's very capable, and we're really excited to see what it can do. But again, it's the beginning of kind of a new generation of off-road racing technology. So, we're not, where we start right now is not going to be where we're going to be in 10 years. And we know that. So putting our best foot forward, and Hypercraft is in it for the long term. We're very committed to off-road. You're going to see us in a lot of different places, in a lot of different classes, doing a lot of crazy cool things. And it kind of just shows our commitment. We're not doing this as a demonstration. We're doing this to participate and help the industry where there's interest, put this new technology to work.
So proven chassis, it's a Geyser G6, their latest. Geyser's maybe won more races in the last 30 years than everybody else put together. Tri-EV motor, all-wheel drive. I set you up saying, hey, there's been this debate in the last 5 years, 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. Was all-wheel drive the only consideration with the process, the building process, the ideation process? And then if so, how much more difficult would that have been than just making a rear wheel drive?
Well, I mean, with the new portal hubs that, like you mentioned, are now race proven, it made the choice to do all-wheel drive very easy for electric because we have so much torque, we have so much power, we have all of it from 0 to 1 RPM. So, for us, more tires, pulling the truck and a heavier truck, it just makes sense. So I think that a rear-wheel drive truck would have been a great way to go, in a lot of ways, but we kind of made the call with Geyser and lean on their expertise in this area, and kind of like you said, with the proven all-wheel drive performance and durability now, it was a pretty easy call. It is a tri-motor, which kind of is a nod to how we've integrated the drive system into the chassis, the way the chassis was in suspension was designed. It is the G6 front suspension geometry that they're already running. It is the same rear end that they have. There's a motor that turns the drive shaft to the rear differential that they currently use. So we haven't affected travel. We haven't affected any of those things. And the way we place the batteries balances the truck and centralizes weight, keeps it really low. And so it's and there's a lot that we're doing with vehicle dynamics as well. But it's gonna be a really well performing truck.
Cool stuff. So there's multiple batteries on the truck. Looks like up kind of underneath the driver and co-rider's feet area. And then obviously a big one in the back where a typical fuel cell would be. So you said under 2 minute, pit stop, all the batteries are coming out and getting swapped. That's what it needs to happen.
Yeah, exactly. There's about 70% of the onboard stored energy that gets swapped during a pit stop. There's a part of the energy system that doesn't need to be swapped. And there's a lot we could go into on that. So we're talking about being hybridized. We're talking about leveraging some really cool new technology, but we don't go into too many details yet. So yeah, the main packs come off. It's about 140 kilowatt hour total. And, we're working on how to do that safely and effectively, efficiently. But what we know is that, within the next, 2 to 3 years, we're going to take that, pit stop swap, battery swap time from, 90 seconds down to, closer to the 30 seconds where they're currently, changing. And the reality is many of these long distance, off-road races in the unlimited class are not, not won by, huge time gaps anymore. Some of these races are won within minutes, or less than a minute. So, we have to be really competitive that way. And our goal is to build a race winning truck, not an exhibition vehicle. And we don't want to just be in an electric, be the winner in an electric class. We want to, win overall. And that's kind of something that, Dave Cole at King of the Hammers and Ultra 4 has done. He set an overall, title win prize. He said, the race team that comes with an electric vehicle that wins overall electric wins $1 million prize. And that's, put things on the radar for a lot of teams.
So Jake, you teased us, King of the Hammers, electric spec class UTV, or this is a UTV channel. Save the UTVs for last. You guys are trying to push a big trophy truck down, and you sound very confident. I'm excited to see this thing in the dirt and hopefully racing. When's it going to be in the dirt? This summer testing, you think, or maybe racing this year, or is it next year? Like, what are we talking timeline? We're going to see this thing.
Yeah, optimistically, which we have to balance the realities of the world that we live in, and there's a lot of supply chain challenges and things like that. But I think late summer, this year, we could see the first prototype vehicle on dirt. And obviously, as we get more into this project, we're going to be creating a lot of content and releasing a lot. We want people to know about what we're doing and be involved in the process. So everybody can kind of keep posted on that. We'll share information through all the channels. But yeah, we're taking a portion of that that technology and sizing it down a little bit. And I can't say enough amazing things about Dave Cole as a visionary for off-road racing, what he's done with King of the Hammers, and he's applying that to electric, and he is leading the charge. And so we're a company with our partners, kind of blazing a path in trophy truck. Dave has taken on the world of off-road and integrating electric into it. And he's given us the opportunity to develop a turnkey electric drive system that has everything that a race team needs to install into a UTV or UTV chassis and race it in an electric class. And he's giving away 11 drive systems. The King of the Hammers and Ultra 4 is giving away these drive systems to specific teams to go out and build these vehicles and start this class. And there's a lot of buzz and excitement about it. And we're going to be showing the first drive system on display at King of the Hammers here in about a week.
Oh, I'm so excited. I haven't been to King of the Hammers yet. I'm going. I was leading all this whole discussion, right? You got all these different types of vehicles, but ultimately, when are we going to see this in a consumer UTV? And to see something on display is very exciting too. So I'm excited to see that for sure. And electric UTVs, let's talk about them for a second. I mean, if you can tell us anything about it, what we're going to see. But, as a comparison, the example that comes up with me is in a sport UTV, but it's arguably the most popular in the market is the Polaris Ranger. Now, Polaris, as we all know, biggest company in the game, and with the most overall UTV sold, and the Ranger sells almost double what the Razors sell. But, this isn't a high performance, but they've been selling in an EV version for quite a while. They just announced the 2022. So they've stepped up the performance quite a bit. And they're now boasting up to an 80-mile range, 110 horsepower. Price point is high, but not like double. It's 25,000 up to 30,000. And the ultimate version, the higher and more expensive, the battery capacity doubles from a 14.9 kilowatt to a 29.8 kilowatt. It's even boasting a 2,500 pound towing capacity. So I feel like the Ranger is a good example because Polaris is also innovating. They purchase electric drivetrain companies like Zero. They see a future in it. They've invested in it. The Ranger for them, if they have success, I think is going to be a big deal. And then it would be a matter of time before maybe see a Razor. But, what do you guys think since you've got something to show the world here at King of the Hammers? And how does that relate to a performance UTV consumer-driven vehicle that people are going to be excited about?
Yeah, I mean, it's really understandable how an OEM like Polaris would, really kind of start to release, electric in more of a utility. There's less change for, people that own the utilities, and I think it's a little bit easier to adapt to that, versus like coming out in an RZR or Razor. Platform electric, like we're going to be really critical, right? What's cool about the entry into, Ultra 4 with an electric UTV class is, it's closed course, right? I mean, it's about a 45-minute, to be announced, but, a very specific course length. And so the vehicle only has to perform for that length. They're purpose-built vehicles. It's a drive system. It comes with 40 kilowatt hours of energy. So you can see, it's a significant more amount of energy. It comes with a Dana motor that puts out, almost 300 horsepower and about 590 foot-pounds of torque. So insane amount of power, performance. And, but that's the cool thing about racing is that we don't have to be everything to everybody. It can be very purpose built, but it's going to inspire people and show them what it's capable of. And I think the drivers are going to have a lot of fun racing these vehicles. So, what we do is we provide, the full system that's turnkey and plug and play to them, and they get to choose how they integrate it into the vehicle platform. How they connect to the drivetrain, where they place the batteries, where they place the weight, it's all up to them. It's really, built around that, the racing fabricator kind of custom built chassis mentality. So we built a drive system that's really flexible, and it's a 4-pack battery pack grouping. So, it's not one giant pack that they have to stuff somewhere. It comes in 4 different pack modules, and, the safety is top notch. I mean, these are very, very thorough, well-engineered systems that have a lot of safety, built into them to keep the driver safe. And we're just really excited and honored to be a part of this and help Dave, achieve his vision to really bring electric into the culture of Ultra 4 and King of the Hammers and off-road racing.
That's really exciting. It's gonna be cool to see. It seems like that would be a great way to do it. Obviously, in a UTV, maybe. I'm curious what the course is going to be like. I'm thinking in my mind, is it going to be uh, hammer style, rock, slow? I'm sure it'll have a little bit of everything. So it's wild. I mean, that was what we would prove out the interest, like you said, of sport performance UTV. That the big companies might want to make or invest in, and showing that this would be a really interesting, you know, um, takeaway. I'm sure everyone will be paying close attention to just overall perception, the performance, et cetera. And I like the idea of a spec class too. It sounds like you guys have built in some ingenuity where people can be different and unique and try different setups with weight distribution. So that sounds very exciting. Just because you have a level playing field, but with some little tweaking you can do. And then obviously that terrain out there is brutal anyway. So the machine is a part of the battle. There's a whole lot going on there.
Yeah, and you have so much power to apply, that I think being really efficient is part of the challenge too. I mean, you can have bigger, heavier vehicles. Some of these teams are building more custom vehicles. Some are more taking a factory vehicle and integrating the drive system into it. And so do they go big, heavy, powerful? Do they go lightweight? There's all these different things, and that's like the new frontier. That's the unknown, the challenge. That's what gets us excited and creates a lot of interest. So it's fun for us to see that happening with electric. We see things like Formula E and Extreme E, and in the past where electric has shown up in racing, there isn't that creative freedom, right? It's one vehicle type. The drive system is spec. The vehicle is spec. The only difference is the driver and in who can survive to the end. Where with Dave, he has such a strong vision of keeping things unlimited for people as much as possible. And the big challenge with electric is how do we do that safely? And there's going to be some people that try to build these drive systems to spec, and Hypercraft will help with those. Those teams that want to take on that challenge. But there's really strong, very articulated safety protocols, to keep everybody safe. And it's just going to be evolving over time.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me of last year's King of the Hammers, where Cody Miller took his Can-Am X3 and got a 15th place finish against the bigger, heavier 4400 vehicles. So, there's multiple ways to skin the cat, and the top 15 is incredibly respectful and maybe the biggest race in the country in the most competitive class, again in a totally different vehicle type, arguably. But it sounds like Dave is a mad scientist with what he continually adds to this event, where he wants the sport to go. And it's undeniable what he's done so far. I mean, from pioneering live viewership, where we can take a sport like off-road, which is very difficult to see, desert racing, and bring it to millions of people. And the guy is just thinking of a lot of interesting ideas. So I'm not surprised that he is a pioneer on this front. So I'm excited to go. It's exciting news. It's cool to hear. So thanks for letting us in on this inside track of info, what we can look forward to, and then get some chatter going. And then from there, it's going to be, hey, how did it go and what's next? And what are people's reactions to it going to be? So I can't wait to see all that.
It sounds like Dave is quite the wild card too. Some of these guys have no idea what the race course is. It's like they're all just on an adventure together. And I think that's where a lot of ingenuity and innovation is going to come from too, is just people adapting and growing and sharing information. And we were talking to one of the race teams last week on a podcast, and they were talking about how all the teams are going to be sharing information with one another, but they're definitely still racing against each other. So it's like, they're all collaborating, but they're also competing against each other. So it's going to be fun to see how it all comes to life. And then you throw the wild card of whatever Dave's going to throw at him with the race course, and just watch them test it and see how everything iterates.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. And, I mean, obviously we have a huge amount of admiration for Dave and what he's doing, and he worked for a long time to bring things to a point where this could happen, legitimately. But we've got some great partners. Dana, came in with some awesome product, awesome technology for us to use to make a drive system out of with their electric motors, and motor controllers or inverters. And AEM came in with some great, electronic hardware for vehicle control systems and some software and things like that. So, obviously this is not something that Hypercraft's doing alone, and Dave's kind of paving the path for. So it's going to be really fun to see.
Yeah, I like, John, that you mentioned, the course, and Dave being a pioneer. I'm hearing early, this course is going to be more mileage, more difficult than ever. This year, Dave doesn't want anybody to finish. Is kind of what it sounds like the work around the Campfire so far. But, it kind of reminds me of the 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive trophy truck discussion in Baja. And it made me think about this and will it win? And Baja is the proving grounds. King of Hammers is the proving grounds. So what the race course is will dictate the technology, the progression of making these vehicles faster, safer, et cetera, to get to the finish line first. And, that's why UTVs have done really well down in Baja. I mean, there's some sections, there's some climbs where heavier 2-wheel drive vehicles have got stuck. A lighter weight vehicle performs well. So, as course design evolves, could that play into the favor of electric drivetrains? And these promoters are kind of calling the shots and helping move the sport forward in that way with how they design the courses.
Yeah, I mean, all of those are incredible factors that keep things moving, and we have a lot of those same questions too. I mean, it's the exciting part, the unknown and the challenge, is part of it. I think when things become really easy and consistent, not a lot of change, we lose interest. We look for something else. We're just naturally, as people, just challenged and to go create and innovate. So Dave does that with his course design, and companies like us do it with technology. Builders and race teams do it with how they implement that technology and apply it. We all learn from each other. So I think the most fun part for me of this sport is just the mutual respect that we all have for each other, the collaboration, and just the culture of it, right? I know, Nick, that's what you love about it. That's what we love about it. And what's interesting is to see how electric is being embraced into that culture. I honestly thought, coming into this, that we would be, kind of, kept at arm's length, but we're seeing so much excitement and people willing to talk about it and just let it play out, in many ways, or there's advocates, but no matter what, it's just not a hostile environment for electric to come in. It's now being part of the competition and just the new progression for the sport.
All right, guys, final question, prediction time. What do you think? How long until we see a consumer performance UTV? The Ranger's here today. It's been around, but a performance, I would like to hear what one's a real world customer who's excited about it can go buy one on the showroom floor.
I think we're maybe 3 years out, go to market, 5 years from widespread adoption.
Yeah, I'm really close on that too. I know it's within 5 years. It's just, you just see all the signs of it. I think that, I think within 3 years, there will be an effort, an attempt, Can-Am or Polaris or somebody's going to, have something, but how good it is, hard to know. Right. But it'll be there.
Yeah. We know they're all working on it. There's enough signals and, press releases out there that show us what Can-Am and Polaris are working on. And so, it's like Jake said, it's like, how good is it going to be? And then it has to prove itself. And then that's when, the consumers are going to follow.
And don't count out the, the disruptors, the newcomers and startups like Vanderhall with the Brawley. I mean, there's some new stuff coming. How much that will be accepted as part of the UTV culture, I don't know, because it seems like the startups that we're seeing are kind of different types of vehicles, have different features and things like that. But I mean, they're coming, so we could see a new startup come with something even sooner.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Vanderhall Brawley. It looks kind of like a little mini SUV, like you said. It doesn't look like a traditional UTV. There's been the Nicola renders. I think even working prototype people rode in at a sand show. I think Segway has maybe some hybrids. So interesting. If you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to add, or any other brands like that you think could make a name for themselves against the big giants, and any final, what do you guys think about if you give people, who maybe are a naysayer to electric, powertrains or technology in the UTV space? Like, what would you encourage them to think about or consider that would make it, a great for them to potentially own one in the future?
Well, I'm gonna speak up here and then let Jake have the final words. But I think that electric is sort of the big equalizer right now in uh, transportation, innovation, automotive, all that space. That's where we're seeing, these newcomers come into the space. And, you know, I'm sure there's going to be innovations that come from, it might look weird, one of these companies bringing some weird innovation that might seem more urban or Cosmo or something, and then all of a sudden it breaks into the off-road space, or we just don't know where cool ideas are going to come from right now. And that's a really neat place to be. And so we're in this like new pioneering frontier, like gold rush for like where this is all going. And so I think just for all of us to be in that space, having these conversations, pushing innovation, feeding the culture with new inspiration. I think the exciting part is that we don't know what's coming, and we're excited to be adding, a component that we know is going to be the heartbeat of a lot of this innovation. So we feel strong that we're in a space as Hypercraft to be powering people's imagination for decades to come. And I think the history books are yet to be written.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much in what John said that rings true. And we spend a lot of time looking at how industries evolve and new technologies come to market. This is what we do really well, and we're very immersed in it, just like you are, Nick. It's how do we provide a value to the customer? And that value is the experience and the fun factor. And that's what it's all about to me. And I think when the reality is when people experience an electric vehicle, it doesn't matter what your perceptions of electric is beforehand or what your past experiences are. It is so much fun, and the more people that get to experience that, the more things will change, and we're excited to see that happen, because it's all about the fun. And electric is a different experience. We don't compare it to gas, and we also don't talk about trying to eliminate gas. Like, that's not what we're here for. Gas engines will be around for a really long time, and we're really excited about even the next evolution for internal combustion engines and that technology. But the fun factor and the experience of electric is unique, and when people get to experience it, they're going to have a lot of fun.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being on the show. I like to talk about a lot of things with technology, with UTV market, what's happening, whether it's live valve suspension, things like that. But this is a whole nother realm. We're talking, new form of power, and we're going to get to see a taste of it in real life at the King of the Hammer. So just a reminder, if you're like me, you're going to be excited, tuned in to check it out, to see these vehicles perform and see what you guys coming down the way with the trophy truck and all that type of stuff. So check them out online, hypercraftusa.com, if you'd like to learn a little bit more. Again, thank you guys so much. I learned quite a bit. This is really fun, and talk about where we're going to be headed, and along with a mixture of real world of where we're at today. So fun. I hope you guys like this listening. If you guys like the content like this, please like and subscribe. If you want to hear more about our products, check us out on our website, chupacabraoffroad.com. Thanks again, and we will see you on the next one.